Welcome to the most significant research and news this week for creating your most beautiful, healthy life. You're going to want to share this with a lot of other people because people don't realize some of the information we're going to be going over. We're going to be reviewing, high-intensity interval training and glucose metabolism in the brain. That's the research that came out. And as it says, short-term interval training alters brain glucose metabolism in subjects with insulin resistance. And so I'll go through this a little bit more, but basically what this is about, and we're going to hit really some information about really high-intensity interval training. We're going to specifically look at the Nutrimost Exercise Transformation 4, that's NET 4, which is a net of 4 minutes of exercise per day. We're going to go over what that is, how you do it, what it means. You can see this article came out, it was first published in September 29th of 2017. However, it just went online this week, and that's one of the reasons why I have it for, this was in the Journal of Cerebral Blood Flow and Metabolism. And it just became available. This was done at the University of Turku, Finland. And basically what it is they were studying how the high-intensity interval training alters the brain's glucose metabolism. And what they found out was that it helped with insulin resistance. In just 2 weeks, it greatly reduced blood glucose metabolism in all areas of the brain. Now, they found that moderate exercise also helped with insulin resistance, but what they found out was that it did not, in the study, it did not alter the blood glucose levels in all areas of the brain. However, they said that if given a long enough time, they still think that it may have. And so, but what I want to do is really get into what is high-intensity interval training. What's it mean? Why do we do it? What does it have to do with really this insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity? And by the way, the best way to measure insulin sensitivity is using the metabolic ratio, and that is triglycerides over HDL. So that's the triglycerides over HDL cholesterol, and that should be somewhere in the area of, well, it really should be, let me just put this on here. It really should be a 1-to-1. However, if it's anything that's less than, that's odd. Hold on here. Okay. I was just trying to see something here that wasn't working on my program, but that's okay. So one of the things is that what we found out is that the triglycerides over HDL should be a 1-to-1 ratio. Anything over 2-to-1 really isn't that good. But what you'll see when people are really insulin resistant, you'll see numbers that are through the roof. You'll see like a 5-to-1 ratio. And the worse that is, that tells you how bad that is. And so that's a very good thing to look at and to get an idea about. And so what I want to do is let's just take a look at when we take a look at this research, and I want to go through basically exercise intensity, first of all. And this is taken from Sports and Exercise Nutrition from McCardle. This was Lippincott, Williams, and Williams did this in 1999. This is a text. And basically it's showing you where your percentage of energy comes from as a source of fats. And by the way, we expand this out a little bit, and it's in the book. Like, for instance, at a resting level, you're burning about 60% of your energy comes from fats. And when you're about 1 to 5% protein, about 35% carbohydrates. So you're really looking at the carbs and the fats primarily. As a low-intensity exercise, that'd be like walking. It's about 15% of your energy source is fats. It goes to about 70% carbs. When you're doing moderate intensity exercise, and that would be primarily your aerobic exercise, it's 55% is fats, about 40% is carbs. So it's about the same resting and if you're doing a moderate intensity aerobic exercise. But when you get into an anaerobic, which is a high intensity exercise, anaerobic, you can see what immediately happens is it goes down to as much as it's only 3% is from fats. Actually, 95% comes from your carbs. So 95% actually comes from carbs. So the thing is, whereas when most people are doing exercises, and you tend to do exercises for one reason, and that is to get into shape. But a lot of people use it for weight control. People use it for to reduce their fat, and they're actually doing the opposite. And they're doing the opposite for a number of different reasons. Number one is what it does to your hormones. And I'll try to, let's see if we can put this up here. And with the hormones, we're looking at, let's see, as when you're in a jogging state, when you're doing aerobics, basically everything's going in the wrong direction. Your glucagon goes down, your cortisol goes higher, your growth hormone goes lower, and insulin goes higher. And it's just the opposite when you get into an anaerobic state. So you'll see the glucagon is high, which is what you want. Your cortisol goes low, your growth hormone goes high, your insulin goes low. See, the simple part of the energy system equation tells us that the lower the intensity is, then we're able to use fat as the primary fuel source and oxygen as its catalyst. And that's why it's referred to as aerobics, because oxygen, meaning aerobic, means oxygen. And so the less taxing it is, that allows us to do it for a longer period of time, almost an indefinite period of time. When you can sit there, you can read, and you're using like I said, when you're sitting there reading, basically it's 60% of the energy source is fat. Now, the longer that you engage, though, in a high-level aerobic activity, the more that you're going to produce these glucocorticoids, and the worst of those being the cortisol. And cortisol does a number of different things. Number one, it's a fat storage hormone, but it also is catabolic as far as it breaks down muscle. And so what you'll see is, and you can see this in when you look at, like if you look at a long distance runner, you'll see these long distance runners, they'll look like really skinny and just a very small muscle. You look at a sprinter, and that is a great example of a high intensity exercise. When you see a sprinter, you'll see they look very buff. Basically, they look like almost like a bodybuilder. They look completely different than a person who is a who is a person who's a marathon runner. So the thing about this is, when you take a look at this and you understand what the difference between aerobics and anaerobics are, and in order to get into the anaerobic system, there's really two types of anaerobic systems. See, there's three primary energy pathways for exercise. The one is aerobic, and the other one is an anaerobic system. In the anaerobic system, there's two different parts of the anaerobic system. And those two parts are the phosphagen system, and then there's the lactate system. Now, the phosphagen system is allowed to burn, it's very fast. It's for, and you'll see if someone has to, and you'll see people have superhuman strength too with this. Something will happen and it just, one burst of energy that they're able to do. And that is that phosphagen system. And the phosphagen system it only occurs within the first 30 seconds. And that's the system that we're interested in with Net4. So after the 30 seconds, then you go into the lactate system. And the lactate system is not able to get energy as rapidly as the phosphagen system. It's better than the aerobic system, but it's not as good as the phosphagen system. The other thing about that is that you deplete that. You can't maintain that phosphagen system for more than 30 seconds. That's as long as you can go. And so that's why we want almost at least 80% intensity, 80 to 100% intensity for up to 30 seconds. Now, it may take you a while to get up to that. And you want to look and make sure that you're talking to your coach about the Net4 exercises. It's interesting because Net4, first of all, the best exercise is the exercise that you do. people do not want to spend hours in the gym. And the nice thing about Net4 is you can do it at your home, you can do it in the office, you can do it because you don't really get into this really perspiration that much, because if you're not in as good a shape, then you just do a quicker intensity and a longer recovery time. So if you want 4 minutes a day, if you're doing 20-second burst, which is what I recommend, by the way, a 20-second burst. So it's 3 of those will equal 1 minute. So you're going to do that 4 times a day. And by the way, I recommend that as well. Not doing them all at once. I recommend doing it 1 time a day and then doing it again, like do it in the morning, do it near noon, do it near 4, do it before bed. You'll have that. So you're doing it 4 times a day, 3 bursts. And the better shape you get, the shorter the time period. And when you're in great shape, your recovery period is like almost the same as what your exercise was. Now, you know that you're in an anaerobic state when you should not be able to talk while you're doing it. You should not be able to. You shouldn't be able to talk immediately after. It should be like you're gasping. You'll feel it. I mean, if you're able to talk, that's the thing about that is if you're able to talk, then you're not in that state. I can tell you this. But the anaerobic energy pathway involves really the complete breakdown of the glucose as well as the fats and proteins. But what happens is that you teach your body. See, the body teaches itself. Here's the way it works. If you continue to do an aerobic state, it just as I told you, and you can see it right here. Let's go bring that back again with these. Let me push it over there. Here we go. If we have the hormones, and you see that when you're in that aerobic state, your glucagon is low, your cortisol is high, your growth hormone is low, your insulin is high. So what that's doing is it's taking everything and saying, well, wait, I'm using my body's fat. So what I want to do is I want to store more fat. So you're teaching your body to store fat. That's basically what it's doing. So then after that, everything as you eat, it's saying it's preparatory, because it's saying what I use for my fuel source is generally these fats. And so as you're using those fats, that allows you to, and it does it in a moderate way. Well, what it does is it tells the body to produce is to store more fat. When you're in this anaerobic state, when you're in that high intensity state, you're using primarily, remember, look at this, you're using primarily carbohydrates as your fuel source. That's your fuel source. So what it does is it says, okay, let's break down my fats to produce carbs, to produce these sugars within the body. And it's interesting because we even see that the way that it even works in the brain. And what they are thinking with that study that we talked about earlier, and when they're talking about that this, it alters the brain glucose metabolism in subjects with insulin resistance, what they showed was this. They showed that when a person is in this state of that you're teaching the body to break down the fats afterwards, that for about, and it wasn't, they didn't really say this in this study, but there's for about 24 to 36 hours after the exercise, your body continues to burn fat. So now you have these ketones within the body. So not just glucose, but ketones as well. And it's used for a fuel source. And what happens is, what they measured is that it decreased the amount of glucose throughout the entire brain. And that was one of the things that, and let me just, I'm trying to find even the study here. They said that the researchers found that basically in only 2 weeks of training, it reduced glucose metabolism in all areas of the brain. It made it more sensitive. It said that glucose being supplemented with ketones, especially D-beta hydroxybutyrate and some other substrates, could be one of the explanations for the decreased glucose uptake caused by the exercise. So those are the things that I just want to go through. And so when you understand what that means. So let's just review net 4 exercises really, really fast. What it is, and we say one of the easiest, best ways to do this is to run in place. Typically, if you can go for, and even in this research, they had the people, it was a sprint, they used bicycles, but they sprinted for all out for 30 seconds, and then they rested for 4 minutes. So it was 30 seconds, 4 minutes. And see, that's what I'm talking about. It takes a while to build up to this. And so some people say, I say, well, just run in place. And the reason why running in place, you don't want resistance. Like even if you're doing like a bike, something like that, you don't want the resistance. You want to be able to go just all the way, just boom, 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 boom. And so when you're doing that, and by the way, when we talk about what about a person, I say just run in place. Just hit it, just crouch down, and just boom, all out sprint, and you time it. And you may go first just for like 10 seconds. And make sure you're in the shape to be able to do this, because you'll notice your heart will pound. I mean, it will pound. It'll feel like it's coming out of your chest. And the thing about it is, no matter how great a shape you're in, because it's to your level, your 100% is higher than someone else's 100%. So it just keeps on building up. And by the way, it actually increases your cardiovascular ability as well. It increases it. It just helps balance so many of the hormones. See, it's all about balancing hormones in the right direction. But people say, well, I have a bad knee, I have a knee replacement. There could be a ton of different reasons. Now what do I do? It doesn't have to be running. I mean, you can just up and down like this. You can this way. You can straight out and go. Whatever it is, you can do. You can do weight lifting. Weight training is just a great way to do it without, instead of count, you go by the time period and you do it very rapidly. And I'll tell you what, you can do almost very, very, very little weight, if any weights. When you're going, you can be going like this. I mean, and you can do this like anywhere. And I can't go I want to go high speed, but I can't go to the speed that I would typically go. But you want to get into that anaerobic state. That anaerobic state, in order to be able to get energy that fast, that's the phosphagen system. That phosphagen system, you're going to be using almost all carbohydrates. When you're using those carbohydrates, it's going to teach the body that we're going to need carbs. So it teaches it to take all the hormones and brings them into that fat burning state. And so for 24 to 36 hours, which is really what you want to do, you want to get it's about your hormones. And you'll see so many people, they go to the gym, they're exercising, and you see that they just aren't losing weight. They're not getting into the body fat. In fact, when you start to take a look at, as you do these things, and especially if you bring in, if you're doing aerobic exercise, and you're not eating great, and you're eating the wrong processed chemicals, what's going to happen is even those people who are thin become TOFI, which is TOFI. That's thin on the outside, fat on the inside. It's bad for your visceral fat. It's bad for the arteries. It's just a bad thing to do. I just wanted to today. That is our. That's what's in the news for creating your most beautiful, healthy life. Just to let people know, it's really easy to do these net 4 exercises. It's just a net of 4 minutes. You only have to do it 3 times a week. Now you can do some aerobics along with that. And when I say along with it, I would do it on a different day, actually. And I would do it on like for instance, just even walking is great. Any type of movement is great. Make sure you get outside, get exposure to the sun. It's really about optimizing your mitochondria. Is what we're going to talk about. That's probably one of the biggest things, is just to become an optimal, to have optimized mitochondria. But as far as the hormones, we talk about the foods affecting your hormones, talk about your circadian rhythm affecting your hormones, talk about the energy, talk about the and that's why we want the sunshine. We want some exercise, but really you want to start to implement this net 4. It's just 4 minutes a day, 3 days a week. It's 12 minutes a week. 12 minutes a week of the exercise. And the nice thing about it is, and you can do it wherever you're at. You can be in an airport. You can be on a bus terminal. You can be in literally, you could be waiting for somebody, and you look a little bit crazy. You look a little bit weird doing it, but and you just time it. You do it for once you can get up to like 20 to 30 seconds, because if you do 30-second bursts, and you can't really go over that. Do not go over that. People say, they brag to me, they tell me, I go a minute, and then a minute, and then a minute, and now I'm doing 2 minutes at a time. No, you're not doing it because you're not in the phosphagen system. Okay, and it's not that the lactate system is that bad, but you really want to stay in that phosphagen system. You really want to optimize these exercises, and I would rather see you do 15 seconds. And by the way, 15 seconds on, you'll feel it, but you want to get into that zone. And by the way, once you start to do this and you start getting in that zone, it makes you want to do it more, and it just helps balance your body, decreases inflammation. It really is phenomenal. So spread it around. Your friends that are out there and maybe that have been doing the aerobics, and you think you're beating yourself up. You're going out and you're running and running and running, and you're really wondering why you're not getting results. What you'll see with this, you're not going to break down the muscle, which is a great thing. You'll just basically break down the fat, and it really just makes a huge difference. And what you'll see is you'll do some shape shifting. Your body will start to even if the weight stays the same, you will just really just shape. And that's one of the reasons why by the way, weightlifting is not aerobic, it is anaerobic. It is a form of this high intensity training, because you're just intensity lifting that weight. So even at high levels with that's what that is. So I recommend doing that. Can really transform your life. Remember, it's all about creating your most beautiful. Welcome to the most significant research and news this week for creating your most beautiful, healthy life.
Thank you for watching. This has been a Nutrimost broadcast. Have a good day. Wait, I do. It's plugged in. Let me hit that eject thing because I realize it's a Mac. It's right here. I'm good. I just concluded the broadcast, so I made a cameo. Nice. So thank you for watching this Nutrimost broadcast. Have a nice day. That's all I said.